In the summer of 1087, a suffocating stench spread through the stone halls of a monastery in Rouen. Monks covered their faces, servants fled, and whispers carried through the cloisters that death itself was lurking inside. But it was not a corpse that caused the horror. It was the living body of one of the most powerful men in Europe, William the Conqueror, the king who had once reshaped England with blood and iron, now rotting alive from within. Before we begin this dark journey into his final days, hit subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. William's death was one of the most grotesque in royal history, his body rotting as he breathed, his power fading with his flesh. The conqueror who once ruled through terror would die abandoned, betrayed, and consumed by his own decay. William was born in 1028, the illegitimate son of Robert, Duke of Normandy, mocked as William the Bastard. But the insult became his weapon. Through war and ruthlessness, he secured Normandy and crushed every rival who challenged him. In 1066, he crossed the Channel, defeated Harold at Hastings, and took the English crown. Castles rose, rebellions fell, and England was remade in his image. William ruled through fear, and fear worked. By his final years, the boy once scorned for his birth had become the most powerful monarch in Western Europe. But pride has a price, and one mocking insult would soon ignite the vengeance that began his downfall. By 1087, William was old, heavy, and quick to anger. When King Philip of France mocked his size, comparing him to a pregnant woman, the insult cut deep. In fury, William rode into France and burned the town of Mantes to ashes, proof that he was still feared. But amid the flames, fate waited. One violent jolt of his horse would turn triumph into tragedy. As William rode through the burning streets of Mantes, his horse suddenly reared, startled, some said, by falling debris. The motion threw the king forward, slamming his abdomen against the iron pommel of his saddle. The blow tore something deep inside. Though no blood showed, the pain was instant and unbearable. Pale and shaking, William ordered his men to carry him back to Rouen. He did not yet know it, but the conqueror of England had just received a mortal wound. The journey to Rouen was torture. Every movement of the litter tore through William's abdomen. By the time he reached the priory, fever and agony consumed him. Physicians bled him, prayed and applied herbs, but the swelling only grew. His skin darkened, his belly stretched tight, and the stench of rot filled the halls. William the Conqueror, once feared across kingdoms, was now rotting alive, trapped inside his own dying body. As the infection consumed him, William's agony became unbearable. Chroniclers wrote that his screams echoed through the monastery halls, yet the conqueror who had terrified nations could no longer command even his servants. One by one, they abandoned him, unable to endure the stench of death that clung to his body. Some fled entirely, others stayed only long enough to steal. Gold chains, weapons, fine fabrics, his treasures vanished as he lay helpless, watching. Haunted by pain and guilt, William begged for priests. Between bouts of delirium, he confessed the sins of his reign, the burning of villages, the slaughter of thousands, the harrowing of the north. He sought forgiveness, but even the clergy could not stay long in his chamber. The conqueror's power, his pride, and now his dignity were gone. Even as his body decayed, William tried to impose order on the chaos he was leaving behind. His sons circled like vultures, each hungry for a share of his empire. Between fits of pain, he declared his will. Robert Curthose would inherit Normandy, William Rufus would take England, and Henry would receive only money. It was a decision made in fever and desperation, one that would ignite years of conflict after his death. Yet in that dark chamber, surrounded by stolen relics and the stench of his own decay, William's thoughts turned not to power, but to salvation. He prayed that dividing his realm might atone for a lifetime of conquest. At last, on a September morning in 1087, William's suffering ended. As the bells of Rouen cathedral rang for morning prayers, the dying king stirred. Witnesses said he tried to lift his hands in devotion and whispered a final plea to the Virgin Mary before falling still. After weeks of agony and rot, death came quietly, almost mercifully. But mercy ended there. The moment William breathed his last, the few attendants who had remained fled the room, unwilling to endure the smell or the sight of what he had become. The great Conqueror was left alone in the heat of late summer, his body already decomposing, abandoned by all who had once served him. When William died, few dared handle his corpse. It was swollen, black, and stinking beyond belief. A local knight, Rouen, agreed to arrange the burial, only for payment. Wrapped in cloth soaked with wine and spices, the body was sealed in a lead coffin. The funeral procession from Rouen to Caen became a nightmare. Townspeople fled from the stench, some throwing flowers to mask it. By the time they reached the abbey, the heat had worsened the decay. The great Conqueror's final journey had turned into a race against his own rot. At the Abbey of Saint-Étienne in Caen, nobles and priests gathered for William's burial, choking on the stench that leaked from his coffin. When the lid was opened, the odor filled the church, sending people retching and fleeing. As attendants tried to fit the bloated corpse into the stone sarcophagus, the swollen abdomen burst with a sound and smell so vile that chroniclers wrote it was as though the gates of hell had opened. Panic swept through the church, the ceremony collapsed, and the great Conqueror was buried in chaos and haste. The tale of William's exploding corpse spread quickly, seen as God's judgment on his cruelty and pride. Priests preached that the man who burned villages and starved thousands was himself consumed by rot. To his people, the Conqueror's decay was justice, proof that even kings cannot escape divine punishment. William's grave never knew peace. The Abbey of Saint-Étienne in Caen was too tainted by his gruesome burial to become a shrine. Centuries later, his tomb was opened and desecrated, his bones scattered, his coffin destroyed. Only a single thigh bone survived, reburied centuries afterward. The Conqueror of Kingdoms now rests as little more than a fragment. The curse that killed William was pure biology. The saddle blow had ruptured his intestines, flooding his abdomen with bacteria and causing fatal peritonitis and gas gangrene. His swelling, discoloration, and stench were the smell of life turning into death, decay from within. Modern medicine could have saved him easily, but in 1087, even a king was powerless against infection. William's death was horror on every level. His body rotted alive, his servants abandoned him, his power meant nothing, and his pride ended in decay. In the end, William the Conqueror's death proved the ultimate truth of his life, that no power, no crown, and no conquest can save a man from his own decay.